Sometimes, while riding high on the success of their show, or more commonly cocaine, cartoon writers get a bit cocky and end up with an episode of TV that censors yeet straight into the trash can before filling the trash can with concrete and sinking it to the bottom of the ocean. Or they just decide to never broadcast it again, whichever is easier. It doesn't really matter because all banned episodes eventually land on the internet anyway. In fact, that's all I've been watching this weekend, which is why it looks like I've been crying. And because I refuse to suffer alone, in this episode, we're taking a look at the bonkers, the embarrassing, the unbelievably weird-ass banned cartoons you won't believe ever made it to air. We're talking about a surprisingly well-done PSA about gun safety starring medieval monsters, a cartoon musical being pulled because a background character had a beard and longish hair, and an uncomfortable amount of blackface, even by mid-20th century standards.
We're here to capture fox you love.
Great googly moogly.
This is CanonBall. Number 5, Tom and Jerry, the Blackface episodes. The Censored 11 is the name given to a bunch of Warner Bros. Cartoons from the 1930s and 40s that have been pulled from syndication for their portrayal of stereotypes, mostly of African Americans. They were so offensive that after Ted Turner obtained the rights to early Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies shorts, he vowed never to let any of the Censored 11 see the light of day. And remember, Ted Turner was okay with an episode of Captain Planet where one of the villains travels back in time to sell an atomic bomb to Hitler.
I wasn't prepared for the level of hatred radiating from that monster.
His standards for acceptable animation material are pretty low. Over the years, the Censored 11 became a hot topic among cartoon historians. Some see them as an unfortunate but important part of history that should be preserved, warts and all, while others point out that if you want to watch racist cartoons, there are like 50 internet forums and servers dedicated to just that. But the larger point is that if 11 cartoons could cause such a ruckus in the animation industry and beyond, why aren't we talking more about Tom and Jerry's episodes that were banned or censored because of blackface? Not only do those exist, there's at least 12 of those bad boys. The premise of those episodes is often the same. An explosion occurs, painting Tom's or Jerry's face black, while also giving them big lips, woolly hair, and generally making them look like they just got out of the makeup chair while preparing for a minstrel show. The first such episode was probably The Yankee Doodle Mouse from 1943, which was never banned, but instead edited to remove the blackface scene. The last of the Tom and Jerry censored 12 was 1957's Feedin' the Kitty, which also aired after the offending scenes were cut. But some episodes, like Mouse Cleaning from 1948, where Tom impersonates a stereotypical black man in full blackface, were banned not just from TV, but also from DVD releases of the show. The same thing happened to Casanova Cat from 1951, which not only features Tom smoking, Jerry being forced to perform a minstrel show act for a super sexualized cat, but also scenes of sexual assault. Maybe just stick to slapstick, boys. Number 4, the Powerpuff Girls. See Me, Feel Me, Know Me. You'd think that if the Powerpuff Girls had a banned episode, it would probably be the one starring a character named Dick Hardley, a one-time villain who turns into the Hulk with tentacle nipples.
You know, for a second there, I thought I was gonna turn into a monster.
Look into my eyes and tell me I'm joking about any of that. But no, so far the only Powerpuff Girls episode to be pulled off the air is See Me, Feel Me, Know Me. It's an homage to the Who song See Me, Feel Me, the finale to the 1969 rock opera Tommy, where all the Powerpuff Girls characters sing.
All the little old folks can walk real slow.
Definitely an experimental episode, but nothing Western animation hasn't done before. Even the plot isn't breaking any new ground. After getting their asses handed to them by all their villains attacking at once, the Powerpuff Girls feel overwhelmed and start praying for peace until a magical gnome arrives, ready to grant their wish. But because the world has been reading Rumpelstiltskin for over 2 centuries, and more recently been watching its tasteful porn parody, Rumpelforeskin,
Rumpelforeskin, baloney bop, bit of the old cunning linguistics.
the audience quickly guesses that the gnome will only help the girls for a price. What the gnome wants from the girls in exchange for destroying all evil in the world is their superpowers. They eventually agree in order to save everyone, and to be able to live like regular girls. The gnome takes their powers, defeats all the villains, and then turns the entire city of Townsville into a cult worshipping him. The girls realize that that technically makes him evil, meaning that he didn't fulfill his promise, so they magically get their powers back and defeat the gnome. The end. So why was this episode banned in the US, only being available on the complete series DVD set? Series creator Craig McCracken addressed the controversy surrounding the episode on his Tumblr, writing, "They banned it because they claimed that the metal beams in the destroyed buildings looked too much like crosses, and one of the hippies looked like Jesus." And alright, it's not like the guy doesn't look a bit like Jesus. It just feels like too little to pull an entire episode. Personally, I like to think that See Me, Feel Me, Know Me was banned because of the scene of Professor Utonium beating his meat in front of his daughters.
For freedom!
Number 3, Tailspin, Last Horizons. Sometime before 1990, a guy presumably walked into Disney's offices and said, "Hey, I want to take the animal characters from The Jungle Book and reimagine them as businessmen, gangsters, and bush pilots, delivering cargo and fighting sky pirates in the 1930s. And because the Disney exec had apparently just finished hoovering a tablespoon of Satan's dandruff, he said, "The only thing I hate about that idea is that it doesn't have a tiny bear named Cloud Kicker riding a cloud surfboard." To which the first guy said, "Oh my god, you're not gonna believe this." Anyway, Tailspin, despite the absolute bonkersness of the premise, turned out to be a pretty great show, full of real character moments, good jokes, and oftentimes spectacular airplane action, which still doesn't excuse the time the show suggested that real-life Japan deserved getting nuked at the end of World War II.
Pearl Harbor.
Unfortunately, in addition to its setting, the show also borrowed its racial sensitivities from the 1930s for the episode Last Horizons, where the main character Baloo discovers Pandala, a hidden city populated entirely by Chinese restaurant mascots from South Carolina. To be fair, the residents of Pandala aren't really substitutes for Chinese people, they're actually supposed to be Japanese. We know that because, in the episode, the panda's leader, Emperor Wan Lo, convinces Baloo to lead the pandas to his hometown of Cape Suzette, which they immediately begin to bomb in a treacherous sneak attack. An attack that also happens to occur about 20 years after the Great War, so around the start of World War II, making this bombing scene the most distastefully ham-fisted allusion to the attack on Pearl Harbor since, actually, I think they were the first ones to do it. So congratulations, I guess?
We went with the Pearl Harbor. We're pretty classy.
But don't worry, the villainous Pandala is defeated when their fortress gets blown up in a gigantic explosion, which the audience is assured they deserved for being shitty buttholes and all. So yeah, Disney produced a cartoon reenactment of the attack on Pearl Harbor and used characters from The Jungle Book to satirize the atomic bombing of Japan.
A little pandemonium.
The episode was quickly pulled from syndication for its stereotypical portrayal of Asians and hasn't been broadcast since 2002.
Well, we'll all miss him.
No, we won't.
It's also not available on Disney Plus, but you can get it on DVD, just in case you ever want to drop some shitty geopolitical takes on a bunch of unsuspecting kids thinking they're about to watch a show about cartoon bears flying a big plane. Alright, that's enough racism for one day. Let's change the topic to something much less controversial, like, a 14-year-old girl's breasts.
Why don't you come on in and have a seat real quick?
Oh, f***. Number 2, Braceface, Busted. Braceface is an early 2000s Canadian cartoon about a junior high school student with braces trying to deal with your typical challenges of teenage life. Also, her name was Sharon Spitz, a play on sharing spit, because when I watch a show about 14-year-olds, I want to constantly be thinking about them making out. So in the season 3 episode Busted, Sharon is angry at everyone assuming she's 13 instead of 14.
When they get that old, they can't tell the difference between 13 and 14.
Oh, crap.
And blames her underdeveloped breasts. Jesse looks up cautiously.
What are you doing?
So Sharon does what any girl her age would do, if she was written by people who've had their computers seized by the FBI on more than one occasion. She buys a sci-fi pump-up bra, the Enhancer 3000, which the sales lady is absolutely giddy to sell her. What happens next on the episode hopefully resulted in some kind of police investigation of the show's producers. With her artificially enhanced breasts, Sharon gains confidence, a date, and a whole gaggle of freaks, including her goddamn stepbrother, ogling her chest without any shame or a well-deserved kick to the nuts. Unfortunately, Sharon's boob remote gets damaged and her bra starts to expand uncontrollably until one of the cups explodes, probably giving at least 2 people around her a disturbing new fetish. The episode ends like it started, ickily, with Sharon kind of sort of flirting with her non-blood related stepbrother.
Hey Sharon.
Still gross, but better than focusing on a 14-year-old's breasts. So we'll take it. Number 1. Gargoyles, Deadly Force. Gargoyles is a story about magical creatures from the 10th century who are brought back to life in New York in the 90s and eventually befriend a spunky policewoman. It's sort of like a more mature version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if it was voiced by like half the cast from Star Trek The Next Generation.
God Jesus.
Now, did any of that make you think that this show would be a good place for a very special episode about gun safety? See, that's why none of you will ever have a massive coke habit, because not only did the show have an episode like that, it bizarrely worked really well. It all started with the gargoyle Broadway. Imagine a centuries-old stone demon with the personality of pizza. In the episode Deadly Force, Broadway becomes obsessed with a gunslinger western. When he later visits his cop friend Elisa, he picks up her gun and starts playing with it.
I was playing with the gun.
Until he accidentally shoots her in the back. We don't see the bullet enter Elisa's body because, come on, this is still a Disney cartoon. But the original version did show the injured Elisa lying in a puddle of her own blood. It's all pretty intense, as well as a pretty good, non-heavy-handed lesson about gun safety. Because Broadway is a medieval monster who has no idea how our world works, the episode surprisingly stays on message, calling for basic gun safety and gun education. Broadway would never have shot Elisa if he had learned about firearms from somewhere besides a stupid movie. And not to victim blame, but the whole thing was partially Elisa's fault for not storing her gun away safely. The best part of the episode is probably when a distressed Broadway goes on an anti-gun quest to take down an arms trafficker.
A new kind of gun? A new way to kill people? Cool.
But the series never lets him disappear into his own beehole and somehow make guns themselves the villain here. Despite Broadway steaming with righteous anger, it's made clear to us that he screwed up, that he's the responsible party, and it really drives home the message that you should be careful with things you don't understand. Despite that, Deadly Force was initially pulled from rotation, but was allowed back on the air after the scene of Elisa bleeding out was cut. Because the last thing Disney wants is to put something out there that could mentally scar a whole generation of children. Thanks for watching. If you like CanonBall, I think you might like this new show we just put out called PictoFacts, the game show. If you haven't guessed yet, it's a game show hosted by me, and it involves pictures and facts. If you don't watch it, they're gonna fire me, which means I will have all the time in the world to hunt you down and make you